And my brother-in-law, who I ended up working with, kept calling me saying, "Listen, you're not working. Why don't you come and sell cars with me? Why don't you come sell cars?" I'm like, dude, there's no way I'm going to sell cars, right? Um, so so I was like, you know what? Listen, I'm up for this position. If I don't get it, I will come and work at Chrysler with you. And he's like, okay, fair enough, because literally he was calling me every single day, right?
And
So
and
I
and
just
and,
I
wh-
just
and, why-
didn't
and,
shut him up.
and why you at this point? Like, why did he pick you?
Right. He just kept saying to me, listen, I think you'd be really good at it.
Interesting.
So I'm like, listen, I've never sold anything in my life. I don't know if I'm going to be good at it. Yes, I can speak to people well. Yes, I'm professional, but I don't know if I'm going to do well at it. So anyway, I ended up not getting the job that I was supposed to get. So I pick up the phone the next morning and I call him and I said, you know what? I'm a man of my word. I didn't get the job. So I'll come down and I'll meet you at the dealership that you're at. He was at one of the Chrysler dealerships here in
Okay.
Mississauga.
Okay.
And I will start working with you. So he said to me, you know what? My dad's friend just bought a Ford dealership and he needs some good people there. Why don't you go see him? I'll get an interview set up for you and I'll get you in there. So I'm like, okay, fair enough. So I went in, I met the guy at the time, the owner who's not the owner now, but he said to me, when can you start? Tomorrow? I'm like, well, how about Monday? So I started. Didn't really know much about the car business. Of course, I loved cars and I knew about engines and I knew about horsepower and all this sort of stuff. And he's like, okay, I want to get you on the sales team. So I started working. Anyway, by the second month, I was a top sales guy here.
Never done it before in your life.
Never done it before. So my second month in the car business, I delivered 21 cars. My third month was 24 cars. And it was something that I just put my head down because I needed to make money.
Yes.
And I wanted to do well at something. I always say, if you're going to do something, do it with your full ass, not half of it. Mm-hmm. So I put all my energy into it to learn it as quickly as possible. When you look at guys like Tony Robbins, he talks about accelerated learning. So if you want to be a good speech writer, write 1,000 speeches rather than spending 1,000 hours on it. Write 1,000 speeches and practice your way out of it. This is kind of what I did. I accelerated my learning. I'd listen to a lot of the veteran guys and what they would say and how they would approach things. And I developed a process in which I would sell vehicles to people and making sure that they were well informed and there was full transparency. And it worked for me. So within 8 months, I was approached by the owner and he said, hey, I got a chance to look at your resume that I didn't look at before. And I realized you did some process improvement when you worked at the bank. He's like, can you help me rebuild the processes for a couple of the departments here in the dealership? So I said to him, sure. So I started working on it. And then I took him to this training that we were going to. And the trainer at the place said, listen, if you really want to affect change, you need to give the person authority that's making all these changes. So we went out for lunch halfway through the course. And he sat down and he said to me, effective immediately, you're a sales manager. So I'm talking 9-10 months in the business and I became a sales manager already. And, I had already sold quite a few vehicles within my first time here. And I did that for another 12 years as a sales manager. And we became, one of the top selling dealerships in Ontario. We had #1 customer service for a very, very long time. And then in November of 2017, the general manager left and I became the general manager.
And that's Erinwood Ford.
At Erinwood Ford, yeah. Yeah, at Erinwood Ford. So it's been now almost 5 years as general manager. We've done quite a few things since I became general manager. We made a lot of changes around here in terms of personnel and adding departments. And a couple notable things that we did was we set up an export division. So we actually have a wholesale US dealership to be able to offer customers more money for their trades and expand our network outside of Ontario and outside of Canada. And recently we just purchased Direct Nissan last year as another acquisition under the Raymond Auto Group. And it was something that I had a big part in terms of, looking at the metrics and working with the owner Dave on it. And we've expanded the business and it's been wonderful. Like I come to work every day and I learn something every day, which is great. And I always want to do better and improve. So to me, it's a challenge because you have the autonomy to be able to affect a lot of change. So it makes it exciting for me.
I got to tell you, it was very exciting when I found out you were purchasing Nissan there because now it expanded my options as far as am I going for a Ford GT? Am I going to go for a Shelby? Maybe a GTR now? Is it 270 to which is
It's the 400Z now.
we're up to the 400Z,
Yeah,
right?
400Z. We're
Lots.
stepping you up, buddy.
Yes. It's funny because when I was growing up, it was the 270, and those cars are
Yep.
just awesome. And
Yep.
it's funny, every company has its own distinct cars, and Ford and Nissan, apples and oranges. But it's cool that you can offer a breadth of product that way. I gotta ask you, what's going through my mind right now is if you had not had that conversation about that potential job with Chrysler, first of all, when you were leaving the bank, what the heck were you thinking? Like, what was your game plan at this point? You didn't have anything lined up. What if you never had that conversation about Chrysler, and let's say that other job didn't pan through? What the heck were you planning to do?
Well, you know what? I have enough trust that God will put me down the right road. And ultimately, sometimes in life, things happen for a reason. Because I always thought, you know what? Great, I'll stay with the bank, stay with Moneris. I'd, become a senior manager. I'd do my MBA, get them to sponsor me for it. Eventually, become a vice president, get a good retirement, and call it a day, right? But being able to see the other side of the coin in let's say running a business, because in effect that's what I do. I run two dealerships and the US part of it. It gives you a different outlook, and the corporate world is a different cat compared to this. I have way more fun doing this. Yes, there are more problems associated with it, but it gives you a little bit more excitement than saying, I'm the vice president of processing for North America or something along those lines, right? It's a different world. And yeah, what was I thinking? I just thought, at that point, let me take an opportunity, because it got to the point where when I was at that job, I didn't have the same support that I did from senior management, as they made a few changes and they moved out some really good people that were putting you on the fast track. I was on the fast track to become a senior manager there. I used to have meetings with some of the senior managers. We'd have coffee dates every week as part of a progression plan, which was great. I mean, a lot of my success in the car business has come from what I learned at school and also at Bank of Montreal and at Moneris. There are a lot of things that I learned there and how to organize and technology that I would not have done close to as good as I would have if I didn't have that strong base. So what I was thinking about expanding my life, because I figured that if I was going to be consulting on my own, I would have some freedoms that I could take the chance. At that time, my dad had just passed away, and a lot of things I needed to make changes. And I still had to make sure my mom was well taken care of. So there are things that I wanted to make changes to make sure that I was there for her. So that afforded me the ability to make sure she was okay, make sure that the house was taken care of, because it was a pretty large house that we had, and it was just me and her then at that point. So it allowed me to help her get to the next stage, allowed me to get to the next stage. So there are a lot of reasons why it happened. And I don't look back. One thing I always tell people, I have this conversation with my wife regularly, is that I don't regret anything, because there's a reason why it happened. You have to take the good out of it and learn what it is you need to learn out of it to understand why it happened. Because you can look back and regret lots of things in life, but what is it going to do for you? It's going to do absolutely nothing. It just makes you feel like, this pit in your stomach where like, oh, geez, I didn't do this. I didn't take this opportunity. You know what? It happened for a reason. What did you learn from it? I learned from it. Next time I'm going to look at it this way. I'm going to look at it this way to allow me to make a better, well-informed decision, and to make the decisions that are going to propel you forward rather than backwards. Right? There's always a learning experience with it.
I got to tell you, I remember one of my memories of real estate is I was a young boy. Let's say I was 11 maybe. And this person, was talking about real estate, and I'm listening in, right? And they're talking about this property, and the property that they could have acquired 10 years before that. And they said, you have any idea how much this property is worth now? And they start bawling out their eyes, and the spill of regret is just flowing out of them. And I'm at 11 years old, and I'm saying to myself, I never want to be like that, ever, never, ever, because you can't turn back the hands of time. But remember that experience, and hopefully you'll make better decisions in the future. I'm reasoning like this at 11, okay? And some things just stick in your mind, And it's amazing now when you're talking about your story. And I always say, when you're hearing other people's stories, I could say that I started thinking about my own story. I'm sure the viewers right now, the millions and millions that are listening at home, think about their own stories. And I started to think to myself, wow, George and I are actually so much more similar than I even realized it. because the course of your life really came from one conversation almost in the car sense, you know? I remember why I came to Cormans. I told you the story before, that there was a mediator that was renting space at a law firm that I was working at. And I mentioned to him on an offshoot, one time I saw him, I hadn't seen him in months, telling him I'm planning to go open up my own law firm one day, or I'm going to maybe join a law firm and eventually, grow a practice and take over, whatever I planned at the time. I relayed all this stuff to him. And as I was planning to go and start my own thing, I get a phone call from this guy, David Corman, saying, hey, we have a mutual friend. He said that we should speak. And I'm like, what? Really? And it was like literally at the last moment. And that one conversation I had led to this conversation. And I had spoken to like 20 plus different lawyers about their law firms, and nothing ever felt right. And I said, you know what? I can't deal with other people. I just want to do my own thing. And I got connected with the right person at the last second, and him and his cousin Jerry. And they're like the greatest gentleman I can ask for. He's the best partner. David's the best partner a man could ever ask for. And it's amazing how the universe kind of brought us together on one conversation. And that changed the total course of my life, his life. And it's pretty freaking cool.
It definitely is. It's funny. You have to be the right, they say it's the right time, right? So, it's the right time for it, but you also have to be the right person at the right time for it.
Like imagine we were doing our transaction together, and let's say you were ill, or I was ill, or another emergency came up for one of us and somebody else was handling it and we hadn't connected the way we had. Mm-hmm. If we don't have that one experience, we don't come together the way we do and form a lifelong friendship, brotherhood. It's unbelievable.
That is true. You're right. 100%.
So now I got to ask you a question, because it's always bugged me, and I'm going to use a very, very bad metaphor, but right now I'm binge watching Breaking Bad. Okay. You're familiar with the show?
Absolutely.
Very good.
You're so far behind. How come you only binge watching that now? That's like, 8
I'm
years
busy
ago.
closing deals for people like you that I don't get to go and enjoy myself and watch TV in my off time. No, just joking. Just joking. I now that people are saying, you really remind me of Better Call Saul, I don't know if that's a compliment anymore. I'm starting to get a little suspicious about that one.
Not too sure, buddy.
So let's take, for example, the people, I'm not endorsing this under any circumstances as a lawyer, obviously, but people go and open up a meth lab and, doing their meth thing, whatever, fine. But the person, Walter White, you go and start your meth thing. The one thing you're not doing is you're not going to use your own product, So that being said, in my horrible metaphor, you're a car guy. You said you love cars, general manager of a Ford Nissan dealership. Where the heck are the supercars, and where's the spilling out of cars? To me, when I watch you in action, I know you get that you love cars, but it's like a widget. Like you're selling widgets. You could be selling these cups for all I know. You're running a business like a business. It's not thought of as a super fan. It's thought of as a business first and foremost.
Absolutely. It's thought of a business first and foremost, because the thing is, you have to make sure you have the right processes and people in place to run it, regardless of what you're selling. Now, obviously, you have to love the product that you're selling. That's a golden rule. If you don't love what you're selling and you don't believe in it, then you shouldn't be selling it. Number one. Number two, again, you have to have the right people and processes, and you have to treat it like a business. You have to look at your return on investment. You have to look at making sure you're taking care of your people properly, because that goes an absolutely long way in making sure that your business is successful. And you have to make sure you're taking care of your customers as well too, because they're the people that will come back and buy, and you want to make sure you foster and keep those relationships going well too. So I may not have all the supercars, and I don't get me wrong, I love driving. Up to last week I was driving a Shelby GT350, right? Took it home for the weekend, went to a car show with it. So I really enjoy doing that, but at the same time I try not to get emotionally invested, because it can detract you from making sure you're taking care of the important parts of your business. Those things are just a fringe benefit in my eyes.
Thank you for enjoying today's episode of the Chosen Life podcast. Go ahead and hit the subscription button below and the notification bell to catch all of our great shows. And remember to contact the Chosen Lawyers when you are ready for your next real estate and commercial transaction. Go to kormans.ca.